having that clarity of like what it is and how it fits into a given company, that puts you head and shoulders above most candidates, because most candidates aren't thinking about this. Most companies aren't thinking about this. It will make you, in general, just more strategic. How do I get my first DevRel job? This is a fantastic question. DevRel is one of those spaces that I think is so squishy. And the reason I say that is that I have noticed that DevRel is not a space that's well defined. You can't look at a job description for somebody who's in DevRel and feel like it's actually correct toward what they're doing, because typically the job description gets very overgeneralized. And a lot of times what happens is DevRel teams are built by somebody who worked as a DevRel, who builds a team that does what they do. A lot of times DevRel is creating great content. Sometimes it is community. That is another skill that's very separate from your ability to create content on your own. Can you think about how like the marketing and the product and the APIs coming out of engineering all fit together to tell a story? That's another really important skill. Can you sit with the engineering teams and like help them build and prototype? None of these are required, but depending on the team you join, you might find yourself doing more or less of these things. And the thing that I find really interesting about this is that as you start to explore these careers, so many teams haven't thought about this. They're thinking, we are a growing company, we need more users, we should get a DevRel team. And they're not thinking about, how does DevRel fit into our org? Like, where are our strengths and weaknesses? Do we have a really strong like technical leadership team that is out in public explaining the value of working the way that we work? If so, we probably don't need a DevRel team that does that. If we don't have strong external presence, maybe we need somebody who's very good at getting up on a stage and giving a rousing talk to get people excited about the way we want them to build. Maybe your DevRel team needs to be thinking a lot about documentation, needs to be great technical writers. And if you're not thinking about these things as you're hiring your DevRel team, you'll end up hiring kind of hoping for the best. And the worst thing that you can end up with is you hire somebody who is an excellent technical DevRel. Somebody who would be unbelievably good at sitting down with the engineering team, building out demos, workshopping the APIs, making sure that the developer experience is excellent. They try to go sit with engineering and they get told, oh, we got that covered. We actually need you to write content, right? And they're like, but I want to work on the product. They would call that a mismatch, and that DevRel ends up leaving or getting fired. It's because the team didn't think through what was the function of DevRel. Because at Netlify, having the DX team sit with engineering and work on APIs was a critical flow, at least while I was there. And that was very much part of what we were building toward. And it was part of when Sarah Drasner initially defined the organization, that was a core feature of what we did. But other teams aren't like that. Other teams are more like, you're here to create technical content, you build tutorials, you don't really do much with engineering outside of the handoff from like, this is done to this is live. That is all kind of set the context for like, if you want to get into DevRel, the best way to get into DevRel is to really get your head around what the various facets of DevRel can be. Make sure that you like them, because if the reason you want to get into DevRel is that you want to write blogs, you could also become a technical marketer. You could also become a technical writer and work on a docs team. Both of those are going to have you writing probably a lot more than a DevRel. If you want to become a DevRel because you want to go to conferences and you want to be giving talks on stage, okay, great. But you need to make sure that you're looking for that in the job descriptions, that you're asking about that in job interviews, because otherwise you could join a team that wants you to do something different. If you want to be more technical, you want to be working with engineering teams again, you got to know what the things are that give you gas so that you can be focusing on like, how do I create the role that gives me energy, that makes me want to come to work, that I'm excited about doing. And DevRel is so broad in what it can be that it depends so much on the company for whether or not you're actually going to go into a role that is going to energize you or drain you. Even if all of the roles are called DevRel, the actual job duties are going to vary hugely between teams. Like, talk to DevRels at different companies and ask them what they actually do on a day-to-day basis. It's going to be a really broad set of duties. There might not even be overlap in some cases. Like, I know some teams who their DevRel work is exclusively go to conferences, work the booth, try to get leads. And I know other DevRel teams whose job is exclusively write tutorials and build demos. They don't do anything else. That's their whole job. And so those two DevRels have completely different jobs. There's no overlap at all. The Venn diagram is two separate circles in terms of what they do on a day-to-day basis. That's because companies don't have a clear definition of what DevRel should be, and every single company is hired differently. A company that is very marketing focused, like one of the founders has marketing experience and they really are focused on that, they're going to have much less need for the marketing muscles that DevRels can provide. They're gonna have strategy there. But a company that is completely run by engineers probably doesn't have a lot of marketing muscle and maybe has not optimized to hire any marketers. Maybe you've joined a team where there are no marketers. And now you've got to be that. You as the DevRel need to be thinking about, how are we telling our story? How are we positioning our company? How are we reaching these audiences? Those are all very critical decisions that make a difference between whether somebody uses your product or not. If nobody in the company is thinking about that and you join as a DevRel and think that you're going to just build demos, no one's ever going to use your demos. No one's ever going to try the product because they don't understand why they would use it. Marketing is critical for telling that initial story. It's for positioning what's on the homepage. What happens when somebody clicks on these links? What do they see? What does the onboarding look like? Does anybody tell them how this makes their life easier? Has anybody thought about what problems they have and how your company might be solving them? These are critical questions that a lot of times startups don't think to ask because they only hire engineering. They only hire people that do the things they understand. So as a DevRel, I've always joked that DevRel is kind of the island of misfit toys because your job is to go in and understand the gaps and weaknesses in a company and then fill those gaps. So that might mean that in some days you're working in product. Some days you're working in engineering. Some days you're in marketing. Some days you're out there writing docs. All of those things are part of the DevRel umbrella, but depending on the company and the company's maturity and who the company has hired, you might not ever need or get to do any of those things. So you need to be really clear about what it is that you want to do when you say, I want to be in DevRel. Know what that job description actually looks like. What do you do every day? And then make sure that you're looking for companies that want the same thing and ask those questions early in the interview cycle to say, I would like to do this. And in talking about how you get your first DevRel job, having that clarity of what it is and how it fits into a given company, that puts you head and shoulders above most candidates because most candidates aren't thinking about this. Most companies aren't thinking about this. It will make you, in general, just more strategic about how this role fits into an organization. How are you actually going to impact the company? You're not just there to be a Twitter celebrity, right? You're there to do work. You're there to provide value to the company. So how do you do that? Ultimately, know what the company actually needs, know what DevRel means to you, and interview the company to make sure that they're hiring you for the job you think you are getting hired for and that it's going to be stuff that you want to do. To me, if somebody came in and interviewed like that and was asking me those types of questions, that shows me a lot of strength as a DevRel, that they actually understand the variety of the role and the impact of the role. And then other than that, you have to be able to show your work. What have you put out there? Are you publishing? Are you streaming? Are you building things? Whichever thing you want to do, make sure that you're putting that work out into the world because a career is a pie eating contest where the prize for winning is more pie. And if you want to do a thing, do that thing. If you show somebody that you're good at it, they're going to reward you by offering you more of it. So if you want to do a certain job, you have to do that job and build a resume of having done that stuff. Understand the space, put work out that you want to get more of, and you'll get there.